Hello and welcome to today's video. Today's video is based off of a thought and one new thing I recently learned in my during my meditations is that, or should I say was that, once I recently learned is that um a thought comes from a pure place. A thought is usually inspiration, and by itself it is neutral. But then there is thinking. Thinking is a learned human trait. Okay, we are taught to think, and thinking is the cause of all stress, basically. Because when you start to think, you water down your thoughts, your programming, and your expectations of life seeps in and questions your inspiration. It shakes up the thoughts, empties it of value, and ends you living stressed. That was just my own, understanding of the specific um, lesson, basically. And so I was like, okay, thoughts are separate and thinking is separate. And I was like, I want to test it out. I want to experience a moment where I can recognize the thought and recognize the thinking that comes to it. And then after meditations, I went on to like watch a random Netflix movie. And the movie is called Downsizing. This movie is, very interesting to me. As I watched it, I had so many points, I had so many feelings about it, and I was like, I should, like, I would like to talk about this in a video. Like, that was the thought. I'd like to talk about this movie as a video. And then thinking came, oh, where are you going to start from? What are you going to do about it? Um, this is not your usual thing. This is not what you usually talk about. And immediately I just stopped it. I was like, even talking about it now, it's still stressing me out. Just talking about it. So I'm going to stop it there. So I'm just going to follow my thought. And this is what this video is. My thoughts, my inspired thoughts. So let's get into it. The movie I watched is Downsizing. It stars Matt Damon. Everybody knows Matt Damon. Or if you don't, it's okay. Just an American actor. Anyways, downsizing is interesting to me because of the main character and several things which I will proceed to talk about. um, Downsizing is about a middle-aged man. I couldn't really tell his age, but there were like graying hairs at his temple, so I feel like it's his maybe early 40s or something. Um, he has a wife. At first, I introduced to his mom. His mom was sick. His mom, he was one that took care of his mom, I think, until she passed. And she was a patient that suffered from chronic muscular pain. I think that's just what I understood, fibromyalgia. And so he was taking care of her, caring for her, basically caring for her till she passed. And she was a very cranky patient that had a lot of thoughts, a lot of dissatisfaction. And then in this world that they are in, this universe, a scientist all the way from Norway came up with a technology, a new process called miniaturizing. I'm just calling miniaturizing, where he can transform human beings from their actual size into miniatures. Okay. And the purpose of his experiment was to why he even started the research at all was to save the world, to save the world basically. You know, climate activism, saving, stopping global warming, reducing level of pollution and overconsumption, and then climate change, basically stopping climate change in its tracks, not by like a forceful stop, but by a process where human beings can come to minimize their daily life activities, basically. So he was successful, and him and his wife, they put themselves through the technology and were miniaturized, and then they went through a period of 5 years of testing it on willing subjects, up to 30 plus people. These people even had two babies, and those babies were miniatures, like they were miniature people. So it was like amazing because after 5 years, he presented all of it, not just the theory, not just the mice that he tested it on, all of it to the world, and like everybody on the planet, you know, every power, every authority had their hand, got their hands on this technology. Anyways, there's Matt Damon. Let's call him. His name is Paul in the movie. So Paul, 5 years, we see him with his wife, and there's no presence of his mother, so we assume that his mother has passed. So he's living with his wife in the house where he has grown up all his life, where he was born. And it's obvious that they are not happy. And at first glance, you see that their happiness is coming from their less than average standard of living. They were average workers. I think the wife worked at, I don't know, a kind of customer service kind of thing, maybe retail or something. And it involved a lot of standing, all of that. And we see scenes where Paul would massage her. His wife's name is Audrey. So Paul and Audrey, they have this less than average standard of life. Another glimpse into their life is that Paul is an occupational therapist. Okay, he works in factories with loads of workers, so a lot of factory workers, the way we see, they come to him with muscular distress, like when they don't know why their hands are cramping, why their necks are stiff, why their lower back hurts, all of that, and he's there to fix them up, in a way, fix them up in order for them to be more productive, in essence. So anyway, that's just both of them world. And then one day they find out that they can no longer hear from their friend Dave and his wife. And then later Dave comes to them, or they meet Dave. Dave has taken the tech. He has miniaturized himself and his wife. Like both of them have become small or mini people. Anyways, the friend group is that this friend group includes Paul and Audrey. So they're all like amazed, like, wow, what is up? All of this, like, how does it feel? And Dave has this moment with Paul where he's like, oh no, things already hard with his wife as regular sized people, money was this and that. And then when they took this process, they made this change, their lives changed for the better, they're happier, that they can give their children more from life, and the house they live in is insane, all of that. And then of course to Paul, that we're looking at him and his and Audrey's, like we're looking at it from the outside, they obviously have money problems. Basically their lives are tight. um so they decide that, oh, let them just see what this miniature thing is about. Let's just take a tour. So there's already a place in the country, in that area, where in the country, actually in America, where it's called Leisure Land, and it's basically like the whole area allocated to the miniature people. And so they go there for a tour. And Patrick Harris is like an MC, like a host, and he's like telling them so many dazzling things with his wife, how the house is so big, how his wife is buying diamond earrings and diamond necklaces and bracelets, and life is no longer stressful for them. Buying diamond at the price of $83, and all of that. Meanwhile, $83 is like something that can feed them for 2 weeks, all of that. And so it's like Paul and Audrey, they are watching this and they're like, ah, wow. And the government is sponsoring this because obviously they want more people, to be miniaturized. So that means there's not like a lot of population of people that have chosen to undergo this process. Okay. And the miniature people, they fly on the plane with people. There's accommodations made for miniature people to fly in planes, to be at restaurants, to interact with lives like regular sized people. So it's not like they are completely isolated or something. And then Paul and Audrey decide, oh, let's do this. Okay, let's do this. You can see what is very noticeable with Paul and his wife is complete utter dissatisfaction. And so after that whole tour and everything, they go to make estimates of what their revenue status is and all that. So before they got to this point, there was a part where we saw where the bank called them and told them that their check for the mortgage had bounced, that their income to debt ratio is too much and it's too unstable, and they cannot use this month's check. They have to bring up more to be able to pay for the month's mortgage. And both of them were like, at that point, like their wits end. That would be like the only solution inside. So they go to, after the whole tour, they go to meet the agency, like the real estate agent themselves, and they see this lady is the, I think that she's Nisi, and Nisi is just telling them in this enthusiastic sales pitch that, oh, how much is your total income, all of this, and they basically say, oh, it's $100,000 plus, and she's like, okay, calculating this and that plus your house and everything, you basically are worth $12.5 million in leisure land, and this is what your assets and everything will get you, to get you a mansion, to get you your car, you have this company. They are like excited and they're like, oh, why don't you do it too? And she's like, oh, she would have done it, but her husband has a hip replacement and all of that and all of that. So anyway, they decide to do Paul and Audrey. So they go about, you can see them, the scene changes when they go home. There is much more light. Before the leisure land tour, their whole setting was in darkness. They came home late from work. They rarely saw each other's faces. The lighting, the lighting was dark, as if it was consistently dim in their house, because I think because it's small. But I think the what they were trying to portray, what the writers were trying to portray, was how dim, their whole life seemed, how dull, how mundane, and how dark, hopeless it was. But mostly on from Paul, I got dissatisfaction, just dissatisfaction, discontent, uneasiness. Like, he was very uneasy. You see the way he talks to his wife, he speaks to her with this kind of, I don't know, there's a kind of worry, he has when he's relating with his wife. And it's like, and she has this edge, this tinge of frustration when she talks with him, you know. But like, after the Leisureland tour and audio everything that they decide they're going to do it, there is so much like chemistry, not chemistry as in sexual, but chemistry as in, oh, we know each other, we care about each other kind of chemistry. And so they go about selling their house, they go about announcing it to their jobs. Paul's job is giving me a mini like send away party and send off party, and they cut cake and all of that, and they're sad to see him go. And then they meet with their friend group, and all of them are like, oh, and Audrey is really like crying, she's sad, but Paul is like a bit more excited. Paul is alone now in the sense that his mom is gone, he doesn't have any relative, but Audrey still has her parents, and she still has a very, the social cycle seems like she's like more in tune with them. And whatever, like all of that is going away party from their friends is there. The dad comes to going away party, but the mom doesn't come. She says she can't take it, she can't watch her daughter like disappear forever and all. And so Audrey is crying and she's like, okay, whatever. So, but anyway, they hold each other hands, and Paul and Audrey head off to Leisureland. They sell everything. Oh my, Paul and Audrey head off to Leisureland. And so the process of me being miniaturized, it has to be done separately. But before that, they have to agree to terms and conditions, which, and there are three major terms this lady asks them to agree to if they are willing. The first is that, do you agree that, are you willing to go through with this process knowing that it can result in permanent disability, death, and other human kind of, I don't know, injury? And they're like shocked, looking at each other like, oh, we didn't know about this, but they say yes. Then they're like, do you agree to take this process knowing that it is permanent and irreversible, blah blah blah. And they're like, yes. Then the third one, I don't really remember it, but they agree to all three. Then they're in the waiting room, but the nurse comes and calls Paul first. And Paul is holding Audrey's hand, both of them head to the nurse. And I was like, oh no, for the female facilities, you go this other way, but don't worry, they'll soon call you. It's time for me to take Paul. And Paul and Audrey, they keep looking at each other, like they hold each other, like, oh, I love you, the kiss and all of that. And then Paul is heading off towards the, like heading off with the nurse. And he keeps looking back, and Audrey is looking at him, and both of them is like this very touching moment. And I'm like scared, like, oh, let Paul make it, let Audrey make it. Anyways, they go through with the process. I was watching it, I was like, why are they picking people up with shovels? But they're so small, very tiny. I don't think they're like, okay, I think they'll be this long, this, yeah. Anyways, they are picking people up, they're picking him up like Paul. Paul is completely shaven. They have to remove everything, dental implants, bone prosthetics, everything. And then they, after they are completely transformed into miniatures, they are those implants are resized for them and fitted back into their bodies, if they need it. So Paul wakes up in his own room, and he's looking for Audrey. And the nurse comes in and be like, "Oh, I'm going to get you. Like, let me go and call somebody." And then she goes out and she's like, "Oh, you have a call." She's supposed to go call Audrey back, and she comes in with the phone saying he has a call. I was like, okay, and he picks the call, and it's Audrey on the line crying from a public telephone, and she has one eyebrow shaved, her head completely shaved, and she's crying, and she's like, "Paul, I couldn't go through with it." And Paul is like, "What?" And she's like, "Yes, that I can't. Like, I was just thinking about how I did this for you. I started this whole process because of you. And now that it has come to this moment, I realize that I can't just do things, change my life because of what you want, Like, this is not something I want for myself." And I said, "Why would you say that? I've already done the process. Like, you would have told me this and I wouldn't have gone ahead." And she's like, "Oh, don't scream at me. I'm going to cut the call." So it's obvious that Paul and Audrey, they were hanging by a thread, actually. Like, coming into this miniature life, what I came to the conclusion of is that yes, Paul became miniature so that his problems would be miniature as well. But the thing is, becoming miniature only magnifies the problem you already have as a human being on this planet. Like, it does nothing. Changing your situation physically does nothing to change what is inside. Okay, changing what is outside cannot change what is inside. And so, even though now, like, the sun was brighter, although they had covering protection from UV rays, but um Paul had the house. Audrey should have felt even more secure because now they're going to have a better living conditions. They have house, they have a new house, not just a house, mansions, cars, taken care of for life. Like, they have money to take care of them for a very long time without stress, and their resources, the things they need for existence, food, shelter, all of it would not be as elaborate or exorbitant as when they were, living hand to mouth. At some point, Paul was telling Dave that I just finished paying his student loan, and Audrey is thinking about a new house. Like, he doesn't even know how to process all of that. But now that he's miniature, he has a house and everything. But Audrey refused to go through with it. So that means she and Paul didn't have as deep of a connection as Paul imagined, because this is all Paul's POV. What we mostly see since the beginning of the movie has been Paul's point of view, in a sense, and Paul's point of view of Audrey. You get. So, but like, everything is just going to show now, like, even with the money, with the car, with the stability, with the security of existence, of survival. You don't need to survive anymore. It is very clear that whole dissatisfaction, discontent, and just basically emptiness was not because of his poverty. It was not because of his finances. It was not because of him living in that house. And as he kept on, there's some series of events that happened as in his miniature life that kind of exposed him. I feel like if you want, you could go ahead and watch it, but the being a miniature person exposed him to meet, like, first of all, he was pushed out of his bubble of basic suburban community. He met Dushan, that's from some part of Europe, I guess, or he sounded a bit Arab, Middle Eastern. So he met Dushan's circle, Dushan's way of life. And then after a while, he met Lan. And Lan is from the other side of the world. She's from Vietnam, and she's a climate activist. She was so powerful, and not powerful, but she was so impactful that the government had to punish her by forcing her to be miniaturized against her will, and then putting her on a box and shipping her off to the States. So, like, in the box with other people, obviously, other people that she was the one that survived, but she lost her foot. So she goes around with a prosthetics, and that prosthetics was what was the point of contact between Paul and Lan. He's interested in prosthetics, all this kind of physical therapy, and he was able to spot fault with the prosthetics that was given to Lan. And then connecting with Lan also pushed him deeper to see that leisure land is not as leisure land the leisure land he lives in, is just a fraction of the other side of it's just a fraction of what it really is. Because sorry, he had to go to see where land lived. Do you get? And he saw that land lived with death, decay, land lived with poverty, land lived with the other fact that becoming miniature does not, if you were poor as a regular sized person, when you become miniature, you remain poor, especially if you are not, of a certain presentation racially. Like if you're not white, you're not European or whatever, if you are an immigrant, all of that still applies. These immigrants that are suffering as life size regular size people are still going to suffer as miniature people. Already there was already talk on the news of how people were complaining about how there's illegal immigration into the country, and there is now even worse because they are miniatures. You can't send them back, just put them in your own um miniature area and all of that, and how it should be regulated by the government, all of that. So Paul was forced, to see all of that, to face it. He was, for the longest time, because eventually Audrey sent him divorce papers which he signed. So for the longest time, Paul was, I think he had this woe is me outlook on life, like, oh, the worst thing happened to me, this thing happened to me, and now I'm stuck in this place where I can't go back. I'm 5 inches tall. I can't go back to my former life. I can't do anything. My wife left me, all of that. And so when he encountered Lan's own perspective, Lan's own view of life, she wasn't even trying. She wasn't even antagonistic to him, in the sense that she wasn't begrudging him in a way like, oh, because you're white and you're rich, all of that. She didn't begrudge him. She only just was matter of fact about her situation. And since he was like connecting with her in the sense of, oh, I want to help, she was like, okay, if you want to help, do this, do this, do this. She didn't put anything more on it, but it still felt like you could see the I don't know, the overwhelm, Paul came into when he encountered her living situation. But Lan, despite how her situation was really, really bad, it seemed like she had a really full life. She had a pretty full life. I mean, she was involved in her community. Nobody was asking her, nobody was giving her awards, nobody was even like, it wasn't this big acknowledgement of, oh, Lan the activist or Lan the generous. No, it was just something she did. She went to work and she asked her bosses for leftover food that they could not finish, which happens a lot, and they just give it to her. So she packs all of it and she goes to her community and she shares it for the people that she has, people that she knows don't have access to food, or it's impossible for them to, work for food. And she goes and she feeds them unasked for, without fanfare, without any even sense of, oh, I'm doing so. No, she just gives them the food. That kind of matter of fact way. That's the type of person Land was. And Paul was like struck by it, because when he saw her life being like, he saw everything that she was, she saw her inside and her outside. I know it kind of looked like she was, because at some point Paul ruined her prosthetic, so he had to carry her, up and down. There were no elevators in their apartment, and so he had to walk down a flight of 7 stairs, a flight of 7 floors, I think, a flight of stairs that was 7 floors, and every day carrying her to and from work. And when he got to work, he had to do all her portion, and then he had to be the one going around collecting all the food drops that she had, she was usually she usually collected. He had to go collect it for her, and then start using his own car to drive them to her place, and then start sharing the food for her. And then when he's done sharing the food, he'll go to church with her, and he'll be amazed that people in this kind of condition still have a hope for a being, for a deity. Have this hope to exist more, to want things from life, all of that. As I watched Paul get involved with Lan's life, it I felt as if I was watching somebody feel something up, you know. I felt as if somebody was feeling him up in a way, and I don't think he was aware of it until much, much later. So at some point he was frustrated, and at some point, Lan had to go clean his friend's house, which was where they met the first time. Abi his neighbor's house. And his neighbor did not spare his feelings at all. He just laughed at him straight up, like, oh boy, you're a cleaner, all those kind of things. And he was like, you have to save me. Like Paul, like, you have to save me. So Dushan, yes, that's the name of the neighbor. Dushan came up with this excuse to land. He told Land that, oh, in Norway, because Paul had said he wanted to visit Norway someday. So Dushan now said, okay, I'll help you. So using that knowledge of Paul, he just came up with the excuse that, oh, they have to go do humanitarian things in Norway, and like Paul cannot help Lan anymore. He was just speaking for Paul, and Paul was watching her. And then they had this other friend that was a sailor. And so three of them were just watching her, giving her things. And she was like, okay, go to Norway. And they're like, yeah, for real? She was like, yes, I'll come with you. And they're like, I don't think you get what I'm saying. And she's like, yes. Like I've even always wanted to go to Norway, but I didn't have the chance because I've been busy, 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 busy. You know, like when she was in the TV box being transported here, there was a letter from the professor, the scientist that created this whole process, this miniaturing process, and he was very regretful, was deeply regretful. He was sad for what he had done. He had regretted it so much, that kind of thing. And he was really, really sad. He felt bad for her, and he expressed it so heartfelt in the letter that Lan let go of all her grudges, about being punished in that way. She let go of her grudges. She no longer saw it as a punishment being miniaturized, and she just accepted that, okay, see, this is what her life has come to. She's just going to live her life. And when she read the letter, like, it just felt so good hearing that from the scientists, and she expressed as much to the three of them. And then they were like all like, she was crying while speaking about it all. And the three of them were just like stumped. They didn't even know what to do. And they're like not just stumped, or they know, they were just stumped, like, wow, is this how deep this person is? And I think Paul even saw her differently in that moment. And so they all decided, okay, she's going to follow them, whatever. And she followed them. She went to them on a sailboat because the captain loves sailing. So he took all of them on a sailboat to Norway, and they're on their way to Norway. And not just Norway, the very first colony of miniature people. And so they're on their way, and halfway through the journey, or near Norway, close to Norway, the Professor Jorgen, and his wife Helen joined their boat. And when Paul saw them, he was so ecstatic. He was like a nerd. He was like, oh, it's such an honor to meet you, Professor. I'm so, oh God, oh gosh. Like, I was just gushing around. And Professor was just like, eh, you know. Professor at that point was done with it, because obviously land will not be the only case he has heard of where people implemented his technology to punish other human beings. Meanwhile, he literally created it to save the world. Do you get? And so he felt like, to him, the way he was like expressing himself, he felt like he deeply, like, he just became a burden to him. He felt like he wanted to come to the end of it. He was tired, despite how big. So that's the another thing that I came to understand, that it's like, it's just showing that um like there are no good and there are no wrong and bad, and there are no rights and there are no wrongs, because both of them are sides of a coin. For people to take his technology, not even people, for the technology to be perverted in such a way, to be twisted into the most lowest form, like it now became a thing of terror. That just shows that by itself, everything, nothing is good or bad. By itself, nothing is good or bad. It's just based on how people use it. And so when they get to Norway, before they get to Norway, Dr. Jorgen is already telling all of the crew on board, as the friends, Paul and his friends with land, that methane has been found in Antarctica. And to me, I don't know if that is factual in real life. I've never heard of methane being found in Antarctica. I just only know about the ice melting at a very rapid rate. But like methane being found there, it just seemed a lot like Mm. It feels like the writer was trying to create an extreme situation, like for the viewers, we that are outside of the world, for us viewers watching it, for us to be more conscious, of the planet that we live in, for us to be more sensitive, towards saving the world, towards stopping climate change and all of that. And it's like, I don't think it's as effective, to be honest. I don't think it in that moment, that whole spiel, it wasn't effective to me. I just personally, it wasn't effective. It just felt really horrifying. And I was so overwhelmed with feelings of horror that I could not even process the idea of, like, when you're in a panic, who are you going to save? You can't even save yourself, talk less of the whole world. But anyway, they get to Norway, all of them together with the good scientists. They get to Norway, and they are exposed. Like, there's now this whole development, this new development. Actually, it's not new, because the logic of it is that if they're able to create miniature people, what about the situation where the world rejects his creation and now they start to hunt miniature people down? Like, where do those people have to go? And so they created a vault. And now, to me, the vault from the old description is just like a doomsday bunker, but it's different in the sense that it is inside the earth, and you can have life, all forms of life, algae, micro species, you know, all of it present there, animals. You can feed, keep up your normal cycle of life, while the earth above you explodes and destroys itself or implodes on itself. So that's the point of default. And when Paul hears of this, he's like, he's taken up by it. He's like, I will be a part of this. I want to continue my, like, what are the chances that all these things that happened to me, like, I didn't end up being a doctor, my wife left me, I lost everything, to come to be this type of person, this type of miniature person that can never go back to how I was. What are the chances? Like, this is even like, this must be why all those things happened to me. You get, like, this must be the ultimate reason why it brought me to this point, why life brought me to this point. And he's saying this to Lan and his friends, and they're looking at him like he's crazy. And Lan is like, oh, like, you are who you are. Do you get? You are not the things that happen to you, and you don't need to find meaning from events that happen to you. You only need to look inside to know the person that you are, to find meaning to your own life, to find your own purpose. The purpose for your existence can only come from the inside. It's not what happened to you outside. Basically, that's what I got from what she was trying to say to him. Oh, the vault is my one true purpose. When I get into the vault, I will find the meaning of life and all of that. And I don't know, when I was watching it, I was neutral. I felt like Paul was very within his rights. Like, he was very, that made for a very sound argument. Like, there's nothing dramatic about going to the vault, trying to populate the earth after it explodes on itself. He was going for the moral stance of it. I think he was going for a more self-actualization of it. And self-actualization is like a whole compendium of your identity, your purpose, who you are, like all of it, to come into this awareness, this infinite awareness, and that's what he was looking forward to. I was like, you can go. But to me, I just felt like in that moment, if somebody like that asked me, I would look at his life so far, from what I know about it, and I would be like, bro, I think you are very fine where you are. Like, I think where you are is perfect, in the sense that, I don't know, you already have a community. You already have, and what Paul kept on hitting on the nail when he was explaining and ranting to his friends was that, like, nothing ever works out for him. Nothing has ever worked out for him in his life. Not wanting to be a doctor, not wanting to be a good husband, not wanting to be miniature. Nothing has ever worked out for him. So, like, this could be it, for him. And I'm like, and it was like part of what I was looking at. If I was advising, I'll be like, you only see that nothing has worked out for you, I think, because you keep looking outside. Personally, that's what I would say to him. Like, you keep looking outside of yourself. Like, if you take a closer look at where you are right now, I think you have a pretty good thing going, you know, because somebody that is not as deep, and in touch with their self as Paul is, would not appreciate or would not connect with Lance community. They would immediately be repulsed or they would be put off by it, and find a way to just avoid it at all costs. I mean, at some point, like before they went on this journey, when Paul was like, run up and down in Lance community, taking care of her and all of that, doing her errands and all that, there was like he was talking to families in that community. He would go to like a parent's house, you'd see a child being sick, and it would be like he would tell them, oh, he's not a doctor, but what he thinks this problem is can be solved by this. And they'll be so grateful and they'll be so like, and it's like the most basic of basic things. But these people, they see it as a lot because they don't have any idea of what it is, you get. And so um that whole retinue, is that not like the whole point of even being a surgeon? Is it not just to like, I'm sure being a surgeon, he had a noble call of like wanting to help people. You get, and in a way, he is being a doctor because they kept calling him doctor, even though he was like, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a doctor. They kept calling him doctor, doctor, doctor. So like, in a way, was that not like, I'm sure he felt some sense of fulfillment of that dream of being a surgeon. I think he felt a bit of it when he was doing his rounds. Every day he did his rounds in Lance community, and the feeling of companionship that, of connection with a partner, with his wife, he has it with Lan. Even though he was not aware of it, he had it with Lan. He was, this was somebody that he saw first in the morning, somebody that he went to work with, someone that he did her job, he knew her pain, I don't know, he was just with her every step of the way, and she was also with him. She was very present. She was not just like some like manipulative person saying, oh, because she's disabled, so you need to do times 100 for her. No, no, no. She was just matter of fact about it, no nonsense, and she was just like normal about it. And he was, he's that person. I think he's that person that soaks up act of service. I think it's a person that soaks up being of use, of value. But the way he sees it was different. Like he was saying it as, oh, I have to get so thing. I have to be a doctor. I have to be a good husband. I have to be a good husband by having money. I have to be rich, to be respectable about my community, all of that. And it's like, well, you're already all of those things. Like he enters the vault and he's walking. And it's like, why does it seem like he asks somebody, like, why does it seem like we're climbing up here? And the guy is like, oh yeah, we go up and then we go down to the middle of the earth. And it's like, huh. And I don't know. I feel like everything just clicks for him in that moment and he starts running back. He runs back to the entrance, but the entrance is like an inward door. Decides that you cannot open it from the outside. So he runs and he jumps out at the last minute, leaving his luggage behind and all. And he runs and Land calls to him and like, oh! And he comes to her. And he's holding her and she's crying. And his friend is like, Dunshan says, you see, I thought you should be back. Nothing ever works out for him. And he's like, yes, this didn't work out for him. Going to the world didn't work out for him. But did it not work out in the typical sense? Or did he just play in a way that would be better for him? Like, there's a lot to take from that. I think it's more about finding fulfillment from within, you know, finding fulfillment from within. That's what downsizing was about to me. That's why I felt like I had to talk about this movie. Not like you could find a fulfillment, but it's not also an easy process. It's not it's not a process that is done in a day or two or three. It's something that takes living through, to understand it. If he didn't live through all of this, if probably as regular size he got like a chunk of money, which I'm not saying is bad. I'm not condemning wealth. I'm not condemning having the things you want. I really want the things I want. I want the things I want, and I'm going to have the things I want. In fact, I already have them. But like I'm saying that I want to remove the pressure off of those things to fulfill me. Do you get? I think that's what the movie was kind of telling me. So in the midst of having those things, I want to be me. I want to be so me that having those things are just like, okay, it's just as easy as having any other thing. There's no bigness attached to it. There's no, oh, this thing has come to me has changed my life entirely. No, there's no pressure of that. I change my life every moment that I choose to look within and see who I am on the inside. Okay, that's how I change my life. Every moment I have, every moment where I come into either I'm triggered or I come into an awareness, of a part of me that I didn't know was there before. My life is changed. You get, and I want to be satisfied with that. I want to be at peace with that. And part of it is also this whole YouTube thing, like making videos about movies that I watched and the things that movies, how movies speak to me. Like it's not the typical docu style where you have all this production. If I try, like I don't know, maybe someday I'll be able to do all of that. But for now, I don't want to wait until I have all the things to be able to do that. I want to start where I am, and this is what I have to offer, you know. And yeah, I hope my video was coherent and my points were passed across in a very articulate fashion. For you, my dear audience, oh, if you've seen downsizing, tell me what you thought about it in the comment. And if you want to check it out, feel free. It's on Netflix. And I feel like it's worth the word. The only part I didn't like was just the whole Norwegian professor droning on about the world exploding. I don't know, all these began. It's like, bro, you created this thing, and as much as it is bringing so much suffering, it's also bringing up a lot of fulfillment for a lot of people. And I feel like since you can't do anything about controlling what people do with what you produce or create, I feel like you should instead focus on the greatness, the beauty, the wonders, the help it has given. At the end of the movie, there's this part when they go back to their regular life in Leisureland where Paul goes to feed this man in a wheelchair that just sits all day watching TV. He's on a wheelchair, he's watching TV, and you know that he's by himself in the whole world. Like he doesn't have relatives or anything. And Paul goes to give him food, and the man recognizes him so much, he calls him by name and he says, "Gracias, Paul." And it's like, and Paul walks away for a bit, then turns to look at the man and he's like, wow, like if he doesn't see anything, and that's where the movie ends. But for me, it just felt like, wow, if he was not there to give this one man food, what becomes of the man? Who is going to save this one man? And in a crowd of all these people suffering and struggling, trying to make ends meet and trying to just survive the next day, it is very easy to miss such a person. He could just wither away, in the midst of all this crowd. But somehow he's giving the man food, keeps him there, saves him. You understand? And it's like, well, if you want to save the world, you have to start from one person, yourself. So I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.